Welcome back to another episode of the Rise and Grind podcast. Today, it is my privilege to have on the newly elected Mayor of Redcliff and multiple business owner here in Redcliff and Medicine Hat, Chris Czember. And I've known Chris for a very, very long time. I first met him when I was quite young at the Redcliff golf course growing up out there. Run into him a lot, play some golf with him. And he's always around the community. I feel like I see Chris everywhere. And he's always polite. He's always kind. He's always engaged with what's going on. And I really appreciated our conversation today, and one that I think the listener can learn some things on. Ultimately, I'm not very savvy or involved in what it looks like working for a municipality, but I am curious, like what does the mayor do? How does that work? What was the campaign trail like? Chris did some door knocking, which I really appreciated. He came to my door, had a good chat with him, and he's one to always put in the work, whether it be being the mayor of Redcliff or now, owning multiple businesses throughout the community. And I really appreciate and acknowledge Chris for the effort he puts forth. He's a true entrepreneur. He was getting into the business game at the age of 20 or 21, which he talks about in this interview. And hopefully the listener, whether you're listening or watching, can pull something from it. I really could relate to Chris talking about buying his first house and all the reservations he had and the fear to go along with it. But he is a guy that continues to trust himself, continues to push things forward, and is always looking for opportunities to succeed. And really appreciated Chris's time. He's a busy guy, and for him to spend 40 minutes with me was a great honor and privilege. So without further ado, Chris Czember, as always, hope you guys enjoy. Hope you learned something. Rise and grind. All right, here today on the Rise and Grind podcast with Chris Czember, the newly elected mayor of Redcliff. Congrats on that, Chris. How does it make you feel when I say something like that, the mayor of Redcliff? Walk me through that whole journey, because I know you're pretty fresh in the role, and I want to hear it from kind of your shoes, the whole journey up until today, basically.
Yeah, it certainly is pretty new. It feels good, though. I've certainly heard it a lot over the last couple weeks. Kind of getting tired of hearing my own name at some points. But the journey kind of started, many, many years ago, I guess. First time I ever went in front of council. I was told by the CAO at the time that I should go and talk in front of council. And of course, I was young and nervous. I was maybe 25. And I said, well, I don't really want to talk in front of council. He says, no, you should talk. You're pretty well respected in that room. And that really, I don't know if it inflated my ego, but it certainly flattered me. And then I started thinking, wow, if these guys respect me, maybe one day I could join them and be part of the conversation for what's coming forward in the town. And but I put it on the back burner, said in my mind, I'm too young for that at 23, 25, whatever I was at the time. And then as years went by and elections went by, I always said, oh, yeah, next election. Then I was, 39 or so. And I said, well, I'm not too young for anything anymore, so I better get my name in next time for sure. And I really enjoyed my first term. And so I really wanted to focus on possibly taking the next step up to mayor. I very much respected the previous mayor, and he's current councillor now. So I said I would never run against him. So as long as he wanted the job, I wasn't going to run against him. And we talked a little bit about it the previous election, but he decided to run for the last term. And he decided this term that he wanted to step back a little bit, I suppose, for whatever reason he chose. And so then I stepped up and took a swing at it. And obviously I was successful.
It's pretty cool. So tell me, because I don't know much about that world, if you will, kind of the municipal works, the, working on behalf of, a municipality like Redcliff, a town. What, you get the mayor, you get voted in. What has surprised you being in that role? Obviously, you were kind of in that world on council before, but what are some things? And I know it's still pretty fresh for you, but tell me a couple things where you're like, holy smokes, I didn't know this was my responsibility, or holy smokes, there's a lot of meetings. Is there anything that pops to your mind that you didn't anticipate?
I really can't think of anything yet. because like I say, it always was on the horizon of my mind. So I was, mentally preparing myself for the job, kind of getting a grasp of what it all entails. And to be honest, it's not a hell of a lot difference from council anyways, because at the end of the day, mayor is just one person, one part of council with a few extra duties. And those duties include, I make the agenda when we come time, right? I take part in making the agenda, me and the CAO. I, of course, chair the meetings. Um, I am the contact for media most of the time. If media wants a statement, they want it from the mayor or the CAO. So stuff like that, I already knew. My phone certainly does ring a lot more. Being the head of council now, when somebody has a problem that they want to talk about, a lot of times it is to the mayor, unless they have a personal connection with another counselor, then they might reach out to that counselor instead, which is what I experienced over the last 8 years. So yeah, phone rings a little bit more. Yeah, there's a few more meetings, few more responsibilities, but it's nothing that I wasn't expecting. Nothing I didn't see coming.
Good. Yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking before we hopped on here how long we've known each other, and it's been a long time actually. Like I think probably back from like the golf course days, like 20-ish years ago, I think is probably when we first met. I wanted to ask you, you've been in the community a long time, especially in Redcliff here, and obviously, I group Medicine Hat into that as well, but Redcliff specifically, what have you seen over the past few decades in terms of growth? Is it growing more than maybe someone like you have anticipated? And where is the growth heading? Is that on your desk in terms of like, hey, how do we grow Redcliff? Or is that more you're managing kind of the day-to-day operations?
Well, getting back to your first comment, yeah, I think we did meet back at the golf course back when I used to have time to golf, and I heard about this young little punk with a good swing, who I was jealous of, but that's okay. It's in the past now, Ryan. It's
It's in the
okay.
past, yeah.
But yeah, as far as growth, I mean, back when we would have met, I mean, we had a lot of oil and gas booming around here, more so gas, of course. And we know what happened with that. The prices kind of tanked, and there's not any work around here for that. I shouldn't say any work, but there's certainly less than what there used to be. I remember who's on third. We were packed every day after work because we were kind of the stop off from Suffield going into Redcliff and Medicine Hat. So it certainly changed, and it was booming and growing back then. And council of the day back then, they envisioned more growth and they had to be planning for it. And kind of that's what's come about. Where we live today, where you and I live today, is a product of that boom and growth. This area was a development because of that. And then there was nothing to buy back then. There was no empty lots to build on. So then council today opened up East Side, did that development, expected that to fill up much quicker than what it has been. We're getting close to filled now, and we're talking about doing another phase out there. But of course, that's always expensive to do that. So as far as growth, it certainly has slowed down since then. It's at a snail's pace now, but doesn't seem like the real estate market is slowing down as I'm sure you've experienced.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, and I talk about this fairly open on my videos too, like, and I group Redcliff into this, primarily I talk to Medicine Hat because it's a bigger audience, but in terms of new development growth, you get those areas on the south part of town, like kind of in Hamptons, and it takes a long time for those to fill out. And, I'm always curious to that because I'm so biased and I love Medicine Hat, Redcliff area so much. I think it's a great area to raise a family in, or retirees coming this way. But, to your point, my dad spent his whole career in the oil and gas, and I just don't think we're going to see that again. So in the back of my mind, I'm always like, hey, like how can the city, kind of not rebrand itself? It sounds like it's starting from scratch, but like, what's the pull going to be for, population to come to Medicine Hat other than it just being a sunny place and people can retire here and stuff's fairly cheap still compared to Calgary or bigger centers. I don't know if there's a question in there, but maybe just bounce that off of you and see what you have to say with that. 'Cause I do think, once Medicine Hat gets some traction going with new growth, I think kind of the sky's the limit. There's a lot of land, there's a lot of area to develop in, and it's just it's kind of like a hidden gem, right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier there. It gets overlooked so much. We are spoiled here. It is fairly cheap to live here. Our utility rate is fairly low. Our tax rate is fairly low. The weather, if you have to live in Alberta, you're not going to find any better weather. I remember many times I'd have customers coming in from Regina. It was -30 in Regina. We were +2. Like, we are an anomaly around here. It's great. Other than the wind, I don't know if you've noticed it at your house,
A
but
little
it gets a
breezy.
little windy. Yeah. And you probably have some of my shingles over on your yard right now. But yeah, as far as new business and whatnot, I don't think the oil and gas is coming back. Would be great if it does around here. Seems like everybody still is in oil and gas here, just they work elsewhere. They come back here on their days off, which that's just the reality that we're stuck with. And as far as growth in Medicine Hat, I forgot another point I wanted to touch on. A few years ago, I think they only had 16 new builds in the whole city. Like, it's not just Redcliff kind of at a stalemate and growing at a snail's pace. It's the whole region right now. But this topic, of course, basically it's economic development, came up during the campaign at one of our debates. And my opponent, his take on it was, the one example he gave is he wanted to go to Red Hat and basically tell them, hey, maybe you should start canning tomatoes, canning different things, and creating a new market, selling more SKUs than just fresh produce. Where, being a businessman myself, if the local government came to me and told me what to do, I would tell them where to go. I know my business better than government knows their business. Maybe that's my conservative coming out in me, that I feel like there should be less government involvement. Um, so I think as municipal government, a better approach rather than telling them what to do is be ready and prepared for them when they do want to come, showcasing our area, mentioning the weather, mentioning the low cost of affordability, or the low cost of living here. The number one corridor, great for transportation. We have a lot of advantages around here. And we have really good regional collaboration between the three municipalities. We have good communication between everybody. We respect everybody. Me, especially with Cypress County, I really have a good relationship with them. So when somebody does come knocking on your door, which we have in the past, sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they don't, to be honest, because it is a big step and they're, fishing several neighborhoods, several communities. So you just put your best foot forward, see what you can offer them, see what you can do with them, and try to give them what they need. Because at the end of the day, they're going to attract tax dollars, and more importantly, they're going to attract business and spin off business and jobs as well.
Nice. That kind of leads me to one of the questions I did have in my mind, was just like, between the town of Redcliff, Cypress County, and the city of Medicine Hat, is there a lot of communication between those three? Like, what does that look like, if any?
Yeah, there certainly is. We have an ICM board, which has all three municipalities on it. And we talk about things for the region, regionally minded thinking. There's two counselors on that from each municipality. We just got back, I was telling you before we got on, from our Alberta Municipalities Convention in Calgary, which is almost all of the municipalities in Alberta show up to this. There is another one this weekend called the RMA, and that's the one that Cypress County goes to. But when I ran into who was it? Brian Varga? Yeah, it was Brian Varga from the city. He said hi and he says, "Hey, when are you guys taking us out for dinner?" And like, he was semi-joking, but we absolutely should be doing things like that. We have done regional dinners in the past just to get conversations going, seeing what's going on in each community, seeing what we can do to help each other out. Because there are some efficiencies sometimes uh, that we could share resources with. And there's sometimes it doesn't make sense to be independent on absolutely everything. Although, when we do surveys in the town of Redcliff, the one thing that pops up the most is the small town feel and our own identity. So I'm certainly not in favor of amalgamating, but there are some things that do make sense to share resources on.
That it's funny. 'Cause a lot of my buddies are from Medicine Hat, and they give me a hard time because they think it's such a long drive to Redcliff, and
Oh, yeah.
they always joke that Medicine Hat's going to take over Redcliff. I said, no, 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 it's going to be the other way around. Redcliff's taking over Medicine Hat, right? But it's good that there is some separation there, but still some, at least some coordination involved. Um, Now, last question before we move on to kind of, your businesses, which I'm more curious about, to be honest, than anything else. But during your campaign, you actually came to my door, which if anyone comes to my door, whether it's like a salesman or anything to do with municipal works or anything, like I I love that because I'm born and bred in the sales environment, and I think like hitting the streets and like talking to people directly, for me anyways, I respond really well to that because I appreciate the hustle and I appreciate, at least just the effort put forth, right? Because I'm sure you didn't have to do that. What was your strategy there? Like, and second to that, number one strategy. Number two, what were your responses from people? Were they happy to see you? Were they like, hey, get the heck off my doorstep? How was that experience?
Yeah, well, there's two sides to that, that's for sure. And they both ran through my mind. The first side is go out and do it and show your enthusiasm and show the effort, or don't go and don't annoy somebody. But for the most part, in fact, I don't think I got any negative reaction. Everybody was polite to my face. Now, what happened after they closed the door, if they rolled their eyes, I don't know. But for the most part, I think it was very well received. We had I went out, I think it was 4 different nights door knocking, and I wanna say I can think of 2 houses where I was there for almost an hour at each one. They really talked our ears off,
They
which
can
is
rope
good.
you
That
in. Yeah.
Yeah, they got questions, and hopefully I got some answers for them, and, there's some issues that some had, and yeah, so, I always try to break the ice when they answered the door, say something silly like, "Hi, we're here to talk about your car insurance," you know, break the ice, take their guard down a little bit, show them that I'm human too, and just there to listen to them if they need to talk.
I think that's a big piece. What you said there is like showing people that you are human. A lot of times they might just see your name on a ballot or something, but if I think there's value there, like that in-person exchange, if you will, I think holds a lot of weight with people. Because I think, we do lack that day to day. Um, but I just thought, and I wanted to acknowledge you for doing that because you're the only person that came to my door through the campaign timeline. So I would have voted for you anyways. But I think just a little extra effort in situations like that, whether it be sales or anything like that, I think it goes further than what people think. Because I have the same fears as you. If I'm going dropping flyers or whatever, I'm like, people are going to hate me, they're going to yell at me, and it very rarely happens. Like that's the anomaly, right? You make a lot more people happy and you deliver more value than the reverse. So good on you there, Chris. And I wanted to transition into kind of the business world that you live in, and if you could just bring the listener or the viewer up to speed with all the things that you're involved in, if you will. I have a list of things that I think you're involved in, but I would love to hear it from your mouth and kind of get some context to what you got going on in town.
Well, I'm curious what's on your list. So if there's something on your list that you think I'm involved in, uh, let me know at the end because there's one that I always get that I'm not. But so I started off with Who's on Third Pub. It was owned by a former realtor family as well, uh, uh, Gail and Bob Scory. Back in the day, they owned the building and was their real estate office, and then they turned it into a little neighborhood pub back in '93 ish, something like that. So then I bought into it in '99, I believe. And so I was 21 at the time. Um, Signed the papers before I was 21. So I was actually in the States technically as a bar owner and wasn't legal to drink down there. It was certainly a fun experience. So then from there, then we bought the old Bronco Billies and we turned that, of course, into BB's Dollhouse. And then that went on for 16 years till we had to close that down. And then we just recently turned that into the Inn on Third Motel. And we chose that building because, first off, we wanted to own the building that we resided in because we didn't want to have the same problem that the Dollhouse did in Medicine Hat, where they were just renters and the landlord decided they don't want to be affiliated with the strip club anymore. I understand, but if I'm the business owner, I want to have control of my destiny, so to speak. So we chose that building because there's 10 apartments upstairs. And especially back then, uh, clubs in general kind of came and went in Medicine Hat. They'd start off with a big boom at the beginning, they'd slow off and slowly die. So at the end of the day, if our club died off, then at least we had the asset of the apartments upstairs that could certainly run the operations of the building. Um, and then over the years, I've had some rental properties. And then during COVID, we bought we took over the old Lucky Goat and we renovated it and turned it into the North Sports Bar and Grill. And yeah, other than that, that's all I'm involved in right now, down in rentals.
Cool. Couple questions that popped to my mind there. When people go to an establishment, whether it's a restaurant, a bar, like, they think, at least this is from what I hear, like they don't acknowledge that, like, hey, someone probably owns the real estate, the building, and then someone else may own the actual business within that piece of real estate. Um, and like you said, that can be a challenge. It can be good at times as well. Do you have a preference, like when you are running these businesses, do you prefer to own the real estate as well, or is it just case by case basis?
Yeah, there's advantages to both. Like I mentioned just a minute ago there, when you own the real estate, you control your own destiny. You are your own boss. When you don't own the real estate, landlord can just say, sorry, I'm not renewing the lease with you. And that's the end of it. And that's, I think, kind of what happened with me taking over the North. So the value there is all in my lease. So I'm at the whim of my landlord. Luckily, we have a great relationship with our landlord. We have a great lease there, lots of options. So we're very stable for a very long time, which I would certainly recommend to anybody. Um, but then you're also tied up into it a little bit more too. But that's okay. I'm comfortable in that situation for that location and very happy with it. But so yeah, there's no magical answer. Less leasing, you have less money tied up front. Um, but you don't control your own destiny. So whatever that's worth to you. Would I prefer to own it? Yeah, absolutely. But it's just not for sale. So that's all I can do right now is lease.
That's that's good feedback, and quite valuable, because it's interesting that you have one or a couple businesses where you own the real estate, one not, and you're right. Like, the folks that are tenants, there is an element of risk there, right? Like you said, but it can be good because then you don't need as much capital up front, for the whole thing, if you will. Now, when I drive down, by Who's on Third in Redcliff there, on Broadway, you see some businesses come and go. You see small mom and pop shops, whether it's a barber shop or whatever the case is, open up then close down. But I would say between Food Fair and you on Who's on Third, like, you guys have been an absolute staple in the community for a very long time. What do you attest that to? And is there maybe something that you think small business owners may be missing if you see those ones that pop up and then disappear a year or two later?
Well, every business is different, of course. But for those businesses that pop up and go away, I always ask myself, did they own the building? And my estimation is 90%, 95% don't own the building. Rent never ends. Rent never goes down. Your mortgage, sure, it sucks at the beginning when you got to come up with that down payment, but it only goes down. I mean, unless we see a massive spike in interest rates, of course. And there's so many tax implications and benefits to owning. Like I've had Who's on Third now for just about 30 years. I mean, 20, 27 years, 28 years, something like that. Let's see, I got it in 27 years coming up. So I mean, I've paid that building off 3 times. My accountant keeps saying, "Remortgage it. We can save on taxes doing this and that." So that just owning it has so many more doors open for you. And then again, if I wanna pay no mortgage, well, then we just pay it off and don't remortgage. But when you're leasing, I promise your lease will never go down.
Yeah, there's only one way that's going to go, and it's going to be up, right? No, that's a good point. I want to rewind the clock and kind of double tap on something that you mentioned earlier. You being 20-ish years old, buying into a business or starting a business. What made you, I guess, have your eyes go towards entrepreneurship as opposed to maybe getting a corporate job or a 9 to 5 job or doing something like that? What was your pull, if any, towards working for yourself and starting something yourself?
Well, I came from an entrepreneurial family. We had greenhouses here in Redcliff. We moved from Medicine Hat. My dad got laid off at Canadian Fertilizers back in the day, and my Oma and Opa had greenhouses in Redcliff, and the house and greenhouse across the street from them came up for sale. So we bought it. We went into the greenhouse industry. We grew up in it, so my parents knew it very well. And so that's what we did. So my parents used to work for the man, so to speak, and then we just went into business ourselves. When it came time to, maybe move out, had a girlfriend at the time, and so we were looking at a place to rent. We ran around with, I think Drew Barnes actually took us around because she used to babysit for Drew Barnes, and he showed us some places to rent. And my mom just said, "Well, why don't you just buy a house?" I'm like, never crossed my mind. Why would I buy a house? Like, I don't have $2,500 for a down payment for the 5%. So she goes, I will lend you the money. You pay me back within a year. And that's the route you can go. Well, okay. Well, now I got a new vision. So went and looked at 313 First Street Southeast here in Redcliff with Bob Scory. And it was on the market for over a year. It was a cute little home. It was newly renovated. Yeah. How often do you see a house on the market for a year now?
Doesn't happen.
Never, yeah. So went in there. They were asking $67,000 for it. I picked it up for $50,500, and Bob gave me back $500 on his commission. So it was $2,500 on the button for a down payment. Had to pay that back to mom. So paid it back as quick as I could. And back then, like I hear kids now, oh, the housing market's crazy. I'll never be able to afford a house. I didn't think I'd be able to afford a house either. It's not like 50 grand was a drop in the bucket back then. It was a huge amount of money. I thought, oh my God, what happens? I was 19. What happens if I lose my job at Who's on Third? How am I ever going to pay back this $325 mortgage payment every month? I can't afford that. So I had to have a backup plan, get more revenue streams coming in. So rent it out to a buddy. He was a roommate of mine. Sure, I would have liked to live there by myself, but had to rent out to him. If I had to rent out to two buddies, so be it. As long as I'm the landlord, my mortgage will end. Their rent will never end. So just had to make it work. So for any kid out there that thinks that real estate is unachievable and unattainable today, there are ways. Every generation has thought it's unattainable. I was in the same boat. But you just got to think outside the box sometimes. Like I see these stats all the time. The average house back in 1980 was I don't know $40,000, and the average wage was $6 an hour, and then they do the ratio today, and it's out of whack. Yeah, if you can find evidence to support what you want to believe that's unattainable, you're right, it will be unattainable. But if you just go out there and figure it out, it will be attainable.
I think there's a lot of value in what you said too there. And, you know, everything's relative, right? Like I remember my parents when they bought their house that they still currently live in, the price at that time was crazy to them, right? Like they could never imagine, that they're going to be mortgaging on a place like that. And, it's the same fears, whether it be, when you bought a house or when me and my wife bought our first house, or I'm working with a first time home buyer, like, but once you get into that property and all the benefits that you now have access to and appreciation and all that stuff, it's, hindsight, you're like, well, yeah, that was a good play. But I think fear has a big role in people, like you said, just wanting to rent out or be a tenant or just, lease a house or a business like that. So I think there's a lot of value there. Now with you owning multiple businesses, Chris, how do you, and this might just be kind of triage on your behalf, but how do you structure your weeks, especially with your role in Redcliff? Is it, you're putting out fires, or how do you delegate, I guess, responsibilities to your businesses that you're involved in?
So the business model that I got involved in to Who's on Third started off with me just being a bartender. And then new owners came in, they bought out Bob and Gailey and Scory. So that was, I'm sure, a couple of names that you might recognize, probably one of them for sure. Bart Chase and John Hashem came in and bought Who's on Third. So I'm sure you know John Hashem from the Briar Park area there. And they're investors. So they don't want to come in and do the day-to-day things. So they kind of saw how the business ran and who the faces of the businesses were. And so my parents were just getting out of the greenhouse industry then. So my mom and I were the face of the business. So they asked us they asked me to manage it first. My mom would be the day shift manager. And so we did that for a short stint, and then they saw that everything was going well, was making money. They didn't have to be there. We didn't want them there. We wanted all the responsibility. So they said, well, why don't you guys just buy in with us? So that's how we got into it, was they promoted from within, basically. Long story short, promotion from within. So that's what I've done with Who's on Third. So we hired a girl named Steph, and she was doing a great job. So gave her the same opportunity and said, why don't you come into ownership with us? And of course, I don't have the money, just like I said. Well, you don't need money. Like, sure, it's great to have it, but as long as you got a will, there's a way, so to speak. So what we do is, what I did anyways, is I just made monthly payments every month. And eventually my shares were paid off, and then buy more shares, pay that off, buy more shares, pay that off. So that's what Stephanie's doing right now. She takes care of the place. She does all the operations. When there's a big fire to put out or she needs help with something, I'm more than happy to be there. I'm silent, but not really silent. Still there for anything she needs, I'll be there for. No problem. If she needs a shift covered, I haven't done one for a long time. Hopefully I remember how to do it. But if she needs it, no problem. I'm there. If she needs my opinion on something, absolutely. I take care of some of the high level things, getting quotes for insurance and whatnot. She does the day-to-day things. And then at the North, I actually, when it got presented to me to take over the lease from the landlord, I said, well, that sounds great. I love the place. I love the location. I'm very interested. I said, but I don't have the time or the want really at this stage to go in and do the day to day and run it. So at that time, my ex-wife and I, we had great relationships even after breaking up. And of course, she respects me. I hope she sees this. But I certainly respect her and trust her opinion and trust her in general. So I asked her to come in on it. I was actually trying to talk her into buying a different pub for a very long time to get her to run it. And so I said, hey, this is a great opportunity. We have to do this one if you're ever serious about it. So, anyways, long story short, she comes in, she runs it, she does a great job for us. And also Devin from the Silver Buckle, I invited him in on it as well. So him and I are basically silent, and Ashley just does most of the work. So that's how we delegate. Is kind of she wasn't really a promotion from within, but along that same guidelines, anyways, that same structure plan,
It's
and then
good.
that frees me up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, at least from my experience, having like a 9 to 5 corporate job, and working for a successful businessman, I was always shocked at how much trust he put into his operators, right? Whether it be, the Everett Silvertips, like, and you think like, how could this guy do so many things? Like, someone might think, how can Chris operate these businesses and be mayor and all that stuff? But when you get kind of behind the scenes or behind the curtain, you kind of, you at least, what's the right word I would see, are exposed to how to actually operate businesses to where you're still the owner, but you put trust in other people. And that's probably the best spot for them to be, to where their assets and their skill sets can really shine. So when I hear you say that, it seems like you're just putting the right people in the right place for them to then flourish, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it certainly opens you up to some risk. If you think you have the right person and they start going down the wrong road in life, for example, I mean, that did happen with me, with a family member that we had in a position, and we got burnt. But there's risks in life. You're not always going to get things right all the time.
The one just shifting gears a bit, Chris, I really like what you've done with the Inn on Third. Is that what it's called? Inn on Third?
Yep, we call
Yeah.
it the in on third. A little
So
play on who's on third.
exactly, right? Because I drive by it all the time, and I saw kind of the renovation journey that building went through. And when I look at that place, I see the finished product, and I'm like, that looks amazing. Um, what did that look like and obviously we don't have to talk numbers, but in terms of like, how are you coming up with the capital to do all of those renovations? How did you kind of figure out, hey, here's how many doors I want to add into the bottom level? Like, can you just kind of give us the cliff notes of what that whole renovation looked like? And obviously the finished product now is amazing, and I think it serves a niche of people that are looking for that type of place to stay in. Can you walk me through that journey and maybe some good and bad things that came up during that time?
Yeah, sure. So the plan for the building that we always had in case the business failed which I don't know if it failed or not, just our insurance rates were skyrocketing and just didn't make sense to stay in operation. But we always had a backup plan. And the backup plan was to have living quarters downstairs, more apartments. We got 10 apartments upstairs. We made 10 apartments downstairs, just kind of went along with that formula. So I went over to the town and talked to our guy over there, Brian, and said, "What are we currently zoned for? What is the easiest route?" And he says, "Well, motel would be an accepted use in that zone. We could do apartments, which is what we really wanted. But then we would have to jump through some hoops and go through MPC. And if it got denied there, it'd have to go to subdivisions and appeals board and whatnot. But today I can approve you to be a motel. It's much easier to go that route. So, okay, that's what we're going to do. Let's just go motel." So we just worked with the least path of resistance in that way. So going with the motel route, now we just run it on Airbnb, and we'd have no front desk. I have a Facebook page. It's got my phone number attached to it, so that's how we operate that business. And as far as the capital to do it, I get a kick out of this one commercial that Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard for CIBC, and they say, "Oh, if Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid wanted to open up a restaurant instead of have hockey careers, we would be there to help them out." No, they wouldn't. The banks don't like the service industry, and they lump bars, restaurants, motels, all in the service industry. They don't like them. So yeah, Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard might be able to get a loan from them, but Chris Czember and Bart Chase could not.
Little different, right?
Little different. Yeah. Little different skill sets there, I think. So anyway, so we got denied for a loan, but so we just raised our own capital that we had, and I certainly took some out of mutual funds and whatnot. And so we funded it all ourselves. And every month that went on, we also had operating money coming in from upstairs as well. So that helped fund it as well. So I don't know if I missed one of your questions there or not. It seemed to me I had more to say, but I forget.
No, that's okay. I would say just, was there anything through that renovation process where you're like, holy smokes, I didn't see this bill come in? Or, once you get into, I'm even just renovating a place in town, and like not only the cost of things surprised me, but once you get into a big renovation like that, there's always unforeseen costs. Was there anything that you had to do? It sounded like you avoided the change of use on that building, but in terms of the cost of renovations, did anything pop to mind? You're like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming.
Well, even if we went through the change of use avenue, it wouldn't have been that much of a cost. But and you also mentioned the finished product. It's not quite done yet. We still have we're going to paint the building on the outside. We still got to finish some of the exterior. We got siding up top. It kind of splits in the building, and then we're bringing the siding down to the ground as well. And then we just poured some concrete out back, made a sidewalk, beautify it up a little bit back there. But long story short, yeah, we still got some work to do there. We've renovated 4 of the apartments upstairs, so we got 6 left to do at some point. No big rush on those. As one becomes empty, then we'll renovate it. But I've had very good tenants upstairs. I've had 0% occupancy rate over the 17 years I've owned that building. It's always been full, which maybe I'm not charging enough. I don't know, but so be it. And I know I'm forgetting the point of your question now.
Just down below, when you renovated the units, was there anything unforeseen that you ran into cost-wise that you didn't really anticipate?
Right. No, everything went totally according to plan, and costs are very reasonable. And every time you go to Home Depot, you're like, oh, wow, how cheap is this? No, everything was very expensive. We put in new windows upstairs. I mean, we budgeted, I forget, it's been a few years ago since we've done this now, but I think we budgeted 20 grand for it. Nope, that would be 35 grand. We ripped everything out ourselves downstairs, and me and Bart and I, and then we hired a very handy guy, Dan Hamilton, who's the Reeve for Cypress County, going back to my relationship with Cypress County. So we hired him as kind of the lead on it. And so we keep the labor costs down as much as possible. We've taken a break on it for a while now. Downstairs is done. The outside and upstairs we need to finish yet, but it's amazing the cost on everything. It's nuts. We originally, I don't mind talking numbers. I think we originally said we're going to do about $500,000 for a renovation, and we broadened the scope a lot on it as well. We didn't really plan on doing windows in all the apartments upstairs, but we're probably pushing $800,000 or $900,000 now for a renovation.
It's crazy. It's like, in my line of work, I always get asked, like, how much is this going to cost? And I'm like, well, whatever you think it's going to cost, it's probably going to be close to double.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, but it's one of those things where, with that building that you have there, you're going to have 20 suites, which is crazy. Like that's in terms of an investment or a retirement plan, like that's the dream, right? You have all those doors under one roof. And Chris, I want to acknowledge you for just being in a part of our community for so long. And, it's been, decades that you've been around. I see you everywhere, and you're engaged and you're talking to people. And I think you're going to do a heck of a job as the face of Redcliff. And, any closing thoughts or anything we missed on before we wind up here on your end?
I'm sure I dragged on long enough and said far too much. So no, I'm good.
I
But
love
thank you
the
for the recognition.
Yeah, I love the stories though, because I think, the listener, I hope anyways, can pull nuggets of value out of these conversations. And just having a local guy that owns multiple businesses and all that stuff, I think it's good for people to hear your side of things.
I'm flattered by the ask, and sorry it took so long to get it done.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, man. We'll see you.
Okay. Thanks,
All right.
Ryan. See ya.
Bye bye.